welcome to the call. So I am Precious Grihi. I am the advisor for gender and youth inclusivity work at Solidaridad Network. For some of you who don't know Solidaridad, we are a global NGO that is headquartered in the Netherlands with regional expertise centers in the 5 regions. So I'm representing the Southern Africa region, which is headquartered here in Rosebank. We have a variety of interventions, programs that focus on different commodity sectors, horticulture being one of them. Topic of the day is horticulture from farming to market. We are here today to learn from each other, on our experiences on how to farm, practically, and gain skills on how to farm. We have 2 dynamic informants, ladies that are going to be sharing with us today. And without further ado, because of time, we're going to introduce ourselves. She's already introduced herself. We can reintroduce herself again because of the technology. Some few colleagues have joined us. So Nonto, please introduce yourself, and then thereafter we have our 2 presenters presenting themselves. Thank you very much. Over to you, Nonto, and our 2 presenters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Precious. Thank you for that, and my sincere apologies. The problem was my end. So I'm Nonto Masugu. You can call me Nonto. I am the convener of Accelerate Afrique. Accelerate Afrique is a global community for African women in leadership. And you can find us on our Facebook page and our website as well. So it's a global community for African women in leadership. And I'm so excited to be with you today. I want to believe we're all going to benefit from this conversation today.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Chilufya Nkweto Noble. I'm a farmer based in Lusaka, Zambia. I've been farming non-local vegetables for the past 5 years. And when I say non-local, these are vegetables that are currently being imported into Zambia. I love a challenge, so that's what I decided to pick. I'm also a professional consultant for SMEs, and I've been a consultant for the past 4 years. My background is I have 10 years experience in the hospitality sector. Managing director of Kikan Farms, and Kikan Farms was birthed in September 2016. Of course, when I went into farming, I made the biggest mistake because I went into it as a copycat. At the time that I started my farming, the first crop I thought of was tomatoes, because here in Zambia, by then, October 2016, a box of tomatoes was selling for 350 kwacha. So I went ahead and bought a hybrid, which my inputs were really high, and I didn't do any planning whatsoever. Like I told you, I just copied. And by the time I was selling, which was 90 days later, from 360, a box had dropped to 40 kwacha. And the same way that the rate of the tomatoes had dropped, I only came to discover this because I went to the open market. And with the open market, Soweto here in Zambia, they don't have fixed prices. They dictate prices to you. So when I saw that and knowing the hard work that I put in, I just immediately said, no, that open market was not for me. I picked up my produce and I left. And I went to a different market where I was able to get twice the price that the open market was selling for. And I just had to basically pick myself up and say, come on, you've been doing sales and marketing for 10 years for people's companies. Can't you sell your own produce? And I took that as a challenge. I went through to Food Lovers Market and I took my tomatoes there. I had one red one, one orange one, and one green one. And I attached my business card. I did that with all 4 outlets and I left. I didn't have to pick up the phone again. They were now ringing me, calling me nonstop because the extra red one was not rotting. It was it was able to stay on the shelves until the time they sold it, roughly about 4 days. The orange one turned into red, which I like to call my red gold. The green one turned into orange. So just there, my product was able to sell. So that's how I managed to get food lovers on board. Shortly after that, we had Choppies on board and we were able to start off. So after that experience, but of course, we ran into a huge loss, unfortunately. And after that, with interactions with the client who were food lovers and Choppies, I then would be taken on the floor. And I noticed trucks coming in. So whenever I looked in the trucks as they delivered and I delivered, I was looking at the crops they brought in. So when I went on the floor, I looked at the difference in price and I told myself, hey, you're wasting your time. So I decided to now immediately change and decided to copy something that was correct. I copied going into growing high value crops, and we've never looked back. So from 2017 to last year, June, we've been doing exotic vegetables. I'll name 5 for you. We've been doing cauliflower, broccoli, radish, turnip, carrots, and many others. And last year, June, we decided to go into fruit production. And that came about with the COVID-19 pandemic. With the borders closed, we were not getting much fruit in Zambia. And we decided to go into strawberry production, which at the time that we started off with 1,000 plants. As of today, we are now currently sitting at 7,000 plants in the field. And starting Sunday, we've been doing seedlings because that's also going to be something else we are going to do. Seedlings, we are sitting at 4,000 as of today. So we also grow the highly nutritious sweet potatoes, which is the orange fleshed. We call it the carrot variety because it's as orange as a carrot inside. And we also have the purple fleshed. But with the COVID-19, we decided to do all the local sweet potatoes as well, because it's not all about what money we are going to make, but we want to be able to feed Zambia as a nation at large. So we want to be able to cater for the low earning citizens and the higher earning citizens. We just basically want to feed everyone.
Excellent, Chilufya. I think I'll stop there. And Nondo, do you have any questions from your side? I'll hand over to you.
Thank you so much for this today. It's going to be a challenge. Rebecca says she can hear us and she can see us. So Rebecca, if you're there, can you just say something, please, before we move on? Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
So my name is Rebecca Chuma. I'm co-owner of Bex Foods. We're situated in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal. And we are farmers, food distributors, processors, and we specialize in high value baby veg, like your petty pans, your baby marrows, your anything baby. And we also do your spinach, your green beans, broccoli, and cauliflower. We also are in poultry, but we do bushveld or your indigenous chickens and free range. And yeah, so that's what we do.
Okay. No, thank you so much for that, Rebecca. So maybe I'll just move on to the next question. You know, what we really want today is for people to get practical experience on how to actually farm and what they need to do in order to, to farm effectively. So I'm going to ask a question. My question is, what factors do you consider when determining types and quantities of horticultural plants to be grown? So what are some of the factors that you need to take into consideration? Rebecca Chilufya at the beginning says she just copied. But now we're saying when she started. But now we were saying we want to be intentional, and we're saying what determines the types and quantities of horticulture plants to be grown. So maybe you can go ahead, Rebecca, and answer that question.
Okay, so for starters, you need to get the market. You need to understand the market. You can't just farm anything without knowing what the market is demanding. That's number one. Number two, what is it that you are good at? So I can't go and grow strawberries just because Chilufya is growing strawberries. I have to concentrate on what I am very good at. So for me, the main thing is the market.
Okay.
Yes.
I totally agree with what Rebecca is saying. Something else I'll just add on to what Rebecca said. Something else that you would want to look at is to have your soils tested. Once you know exactly what components are in your soil, you'll then know how you can grow. Because like for us in Zambia, we've got really rich soils, but time and again, it will guide you. Once you have your soils tested, it will tell you what level of fertilizers you can use or if they are required or not. So I think knowing exactly the type of soils that you have, and of course, doing the market research that Rebecca just mentioned, these two things are a must.
Okay, so just beyond the market, maybe can you just take us through from the planning aspect of it? Okay, the market is like almost like a high-end value or chain or goal, but the planning part, how do you plan your processing, the production aspect of it? And I mean, that should be really great for some people that are actually venturing into farming and they want to know, okay, fine, I know the market is very important, but before I get there, what are the basics? Maybe, yeah, this is a question directed to both of you. Like, how do you plan your produce from beginning all the way to market, basically from farm to market?
All right. The other thing that we need to look at is the region that you are farming. It's very, very important because, for example, here in South Africa, what grows in KZN doesn't necessarily mean the same crop will grow, the same way in Cape Town. So you need to understand the conditions. You need to understand the weather. You need to understand the timing as well, the seasons that you need to grow certain crops for your market. And the other thing would be, as a farmer, at what stage of the value chain do you want to end? Do you want to just grow, or you want to grow, process, distribute? As a farmer, I think you need to choose which part of the value chain do you want to engage in. And yes, like you're saying, planning is very, very important. You need to, like your finances, your input costs, you need to understand the cost of anything that you want to put into the soil. Chilufya mentioned soil testing, because you may go into farming blindly, not knowing what the needs of the soil are, what the condition of the soil are, because the condition is, because that can be a very expensive process that you may not have taken into consideration when you were planning to produce something. I don't know, Jill, if you can add on.
Yes. So I think where Rebecca and I are coming from, we are coming from an expert point of view. So I'll kind of divert it now to a layman point of view. So you heard Rebecca mention finances. Number one, you need to know how much you have at hand. What is your working capital? From there, you would then be able to start planning out what crop you're going to venture in. Secondly, you need to have an expert that you can work with. because if you're going to do something, you need to have someone that you can pick up the phone or share WhatsApp pictures with, because farming is not child's play. Trust me. Farming is only for the strong, and you need to be on track with things. There are certain mornings you're going to walk into your field and your crops are they've just decided to be in ICU. What are you going to do if you're not working with an expert? So for you to be able, like you heard me earlier say, if you want to farm and make money, you need to be able to spend money as well. Consultancies do not come free of charge. They do come at a rate. But you'd rather spend something in order for you to make money and learn from what you are doing. So once you do that, you are then able to do a budget. Are you going to decide to buy seeds and plant them and nurse them from that point until production is over? Are you going to invest in seedlings? So once you know what your working capital is, you'll be and go. So Rebecca said, I totally agree, but I would like every farmer to identify a mentor. All thanks to the webinar we're on right now. Take this as an opportunity, because we are able to link. Before meeting Nonto and Precious, I had no idea that Rebecca existed in South Africa. From this, I'm able to share with my sister in SA and tell her, listen, this is what is happening with me. So identify a mentor, identify a partner, find someone that's going to hold your hand through this journey. I think that's very, very critical.
Thank you for that, Chibu.
Thank you.
There's a question on the chat box. Someone says, what role does technology and data analytics play in your daily operational running of your farm? So what role does technology and data analytics play in your daily operational running of your farms?
So technology in this day and age that we're farming, technology is very, very critical and is very important to take into consideration. We can't do farming the way we used to. And farming is science. A lot of people may not know, but farming is science. When you do farming, for example, irrigation, drip irrigation, why do we have to use drip irrigation, for example? It saves water. And you are not watering weeds that, that don't need to be irrigated, that need to be watered. So technology is very important, and we need to understand what type of technology do we want to include in our farming, in our type of farming. Are you doing protective farming? Are you doing open field farming? All those things. I think going back to the previous question, the planning. When you are planning, you need to decide, you need to choose what type of farming do I want to venture into. If you are into protective farming, then your greenhouses come into play, your tunnels come into play, finance as well. Protective farming is very, very expensive. It doesn't come cheap. That's where you need to include your fertigation systems, your drip irrigation, like I've said, and technology coming in, your spacing, all those specifications, they need to come into play. You need to understand your weather. We've got, when it's raining, you need to measure the amount of rainfall that you're receiving. You need to measure the temperatures for that day, for that particular day, so that you can adjust everything accordingly, to suit what, or to provide, or to give your crop what it needs. So technology and data analysis is very, very important. I'll come to greenhouse farming as well. So when it's very, very hot, for example, and the humidity is very high, you need to know, I've got this certain crop in my greenhouse. Do I need to open the curtains? Do I need to close the curtains? Open field. Okay, we are anticipating to have so much rain or we have received so much rain. Okay, what is it that I need to do? Do I need to open my irrigation or do I not need to open my irrigation? You know, so technology is very, very important when it comes to farming.
That's amazing, Rebecca. I'm so glad that that you are able to use these tools every day as well. There are so many things available on the market that sometimes almost causes more harm than it actually causes good, because it confuses, because the wrong data can also make you make the wrong decisions, and that could be very, very expensive mistakes to make. So yeah, it's I'm very interested in how you do how you manage the data and the decisions that you make regarding that data.
Anyway, over to you, Nonto. Thank you, Chantel, for sharing your story, and also Rebecca. Thank you very much. Nonto, your way.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm not questions from those who are listening in. Please, may you share your questions. This is what it's all about today. It's all about you asking those questions, and then we have these two amazing women who will actually help us and answer your questions. So my next question, then, I think we spoke about soil and that, the importance of soil in terms of the produce and what you choose to actually plant. Now, how about, say, if one is going organic? Do we still use the fertilizers? What do you do? Because some people want to be organic farmers. Maybe let's speak to that. How do they prepare their soil? Do they use the fertilizers in order to be able to, do they use the fertilizers and yet they are organic producers? Maybe speak to that, please.
Okay. Well, for going organic, it starts from your field preparation. So if you're looking at going organic, I would say the first step you would like to take is find somewhere where you don't clean out the field. You keep all the crazy weeds inside and you start making ridges. So this is now where you start taking the weeds and putting them together in more like a line form, so that after those weeds are buried at the bottom, you now take the soil and start covering. So that in turn is going to mean you now plant at the top of that ridge, and then those weeds that you have buried are now going to work as a very good manure for you. So as you do that, that would be all dependent on your budget. If you're looking at something, your budget is not so high, that would be the route to go. If this is a field that's already readily processed organic fertilizer, we have that available here. And all you do is you prepare your ridges and you start feeding your crop organically. Though I don't know if I personally haven't reached a point where I'm able to grow completely organic, because I find that I'm using the organic fertilizer, I'm using herbicides and pesticides that are not that some of them are non-organic, and depending on what I'm dictating in my field as I do my scouting, I tend to shift away from the organic and just bring in something artificial and then switch back onto using organic products.
Yes, it starts with your soil preparation and understanding the condition of your soil. What is it that your soil needs? I am also not fully organic, but I do what I call responsible farming, because personally, I hate the use or the overuse of pesticides, artificial fertilizers, and what I feed into my system is also what I want my customers to get. So I do very minimal use of artificial fertilizers and the use of pesticides. So I do a combination of organic and synthetic fertilizers. If someone wants to go into organic, it's very expensive to start with. For example, your compost, you can do your chicken manure, but you need to understand that you cannot put your chicken manure that is raw or that is fresh that you have just taken out of your chicken house and put it into the field. You can't do that. You need to compost it, whether it's chicken, it's cow, it's horse, all those things. And you need to understand the strength of each type of manure. If it's got, for how long do you have to compost it for? Maybe 5 months. My horse, same thing. And you need to put in some chemicals to make sure that that manure decomposes properly before you feed it into the soil. Otherwise, from that manure, you could be growing with some weeds, you could be putting some nematodes, you could putting all sorts of things into the soil if you want to go organic. Pesticides, you would then need to incorporate maybe your marigolds to deter the aphids. So yeah, organic, someone really have to think very hard before they go into organic farming. It's very good, it's very healthy. We all want to be 100% organic. Unfortunately, some of the things that we fight, you know, some of the things that we fight with on our crops, it's really, really hectic. So one is forced to then go into the pesticides and synthetic fertilizers. But coming back to the pesticides that we use, you need to understand that you can't just use any pesticide because some pesticides are harmful to people's health. I don't know if okay, Chilu, if you understand like your global gap, where you need to, well, they call it farming responsibly. You need to understand which chemicals are registered, which pesticides are registered, the fertilizers, everything that you put into the crop, it has to be registered so that you cannot feed people just anything. So from my side, I do a little bit of both, but less use of anything synthetic.
Thank you so much for that elaborate answer. And then the next one is talking about obtaining a market. That's the next session we're going to. But before that, I want to ask this one. Chilufya talks about carrying out market research. Could you elaborate on how to go about it? So in a nutshell, how do you go about market research?
Okay, so when I mentioned market research, like you've heard, I don't know if I can stress it out enough. Go into farming as a business. And for you to go in as a business, you need to look for what is it that's out there that can earn and bring you good returns. So firstly, when you do your market research, there's so many things you have to look at. If you've already gotten your property, like your farm, for example, I do my incubation where if there's any new crop that I'm bringing on board, I do it from my home, which is in Makeni. And the farm itself is based in Kasisi, which is 80 kilometers from my home. So place plays a huge part. You need to know where you're going to structure yourself. Then you also need to look at in clients as well. Who are your target clients? How far are they from where your place of production is? You also need your product as well. What product are you looking at getting? So you also do an investigation in terms of prices. So firstly, you go in and check if you're already operating, go and see what competitors are offering. If you're not in operations already, you find out what are the prices that are out there. And for you to know how to price your crops, you need to sit down and work backwards. You need to factor in all your costs, find out what margin, are you breaking even? Are you making a profit? Then this will be able to guide you in terms of what crop you want to venture into. I hope that answers the question, Nonto. Kiran.
So much. I think it does. Thank you very much. I think, if, Rebecca, do you have anything to add on, or should we move on to the next question that's on the chat box? In terms of
No,
market.
very briefly, I think, yeah, I think people need to understand what is it that's on demand. You can't just plant something for the sake of planting. What is it that's on demand? And understand the pricing, like Chilu has just said, because that way, when you plant something that's on demand, you are guaranteed that your produce will be taken at the market. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I know Precious has a number of questions to ask too, but let's ask this one about how does one obtain a market before they actually start farming? Many times you get retailers asking you to bring your produce to show them. However, advise not to grow anything without a market.
So when it comes to markets, you know, that's where a lot of farmers cry, and they want to feed into the big retailers. But the big retailers, they come with their list of high demands that an ordinary farmer cannot meet. For example, if you want to get an off-taker, to get an off-take with the big retailers, they want to see your certification. Are you compliant? And you need to meet certain requirements of that certification, where your FSA, they come in, and certain stores will tell you, we don't need this type of certification, we need that type of certification. So compliance plays a very, very big role when you want to feed into the big retailers.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think Nonto said it all. Compliance. So like for us here in Zambia, none of the chain stores, or even, well, I supply chain stores, I also supply hotels and lodges. No one wants to work with someone who does not show, compliance also shows that you've got a sense of discipline in you. And without that, it also secures your client, because they get to know that this is a person that is professional. They don't just want to work with someone who pops up today and goes missing 2 days later. So you being compliant, it shows that you're not a time waster. So I agree with what Rebecca said.
Thank you very much for that. Over to you, Precious.
Yeah, mine is more around what Chulufia said earlier around mentorship. I mean, that is such an important topic right now, because most people go into farming without really knowing what they want to do. I just already used that word copycat, that, oh, because so-and-so is successful in this sector, I'm going to do the same. So because you're selling red shoes, I'm also going to sell red shoes, and you think it's going to be successful. And I think usually it's because most people don't really have that mentorship or even coaching around business, how the house and all of that. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, so under both of your businesses, are you mentoring at least maybe other women or other perhaps young people? I know Chilufia, you're already doing this. You're consulting. You are a consultant. But Rebecca, I'm not sure from your side also, are you working with other women to mentor them around the do's and the don'ts and the whats and the nots within your practices? I think because this is a very, very important section to actually learn from each other. Yeah, over to you, both of you.
Okay, so for us, Bex Foods is a sister company to Koa Holdings. So we've got Koa Holdings that does most of the farming. It offers consultancy. It offers technical support. It also offers your greenhouse, your tunnels, anything to do with farming. Koa Holdings offers that. And the Bex Foods does the distribution, the processing of whatever Koa Holdings grows. So under Koa Holdings, we take a lot of, in fact, we've got a lot of underprivileged women that we mentor. We take them from nothing, and we also take the youth. I'll give you an example. When we went into greenhouse farming, that was 2013, we had a group of young people. One guy, he didn't finish his junior school, but at the end of it, that guy knew everything and anything about greenhouse farming, from fertigation, from pollination, how to pollinate your tomatoes in the greenhouse, to even repairing greenhouses himself. We ended up calling him Spider-Man. So as Koa Holdings, yeah. So we take people who basically know nothing at all, and we make them experts in that field. And these people end up knowing, no offense to people with diplomas and degrees, their qualifications, but because of that hands-on, practicing and the experience that they get, they end up knowing more and even teaching some of the qualified people that we employ on our farms. So we do a lot of hand holding from your youth to the underprivileged women, mostly women, because I'm very passionate about developing women that are underprivileged, that, a lot of people, they don't want to look at them. Your domestic workers, we've got a group of it's a cooperative in the Eastern Cape, all of them domestic workers. And we say to them, what is wrong for you guys as domestic workers to dream? Because everybody can dream and anybody is allowed to dream, So we took them, we did their business plans, we did funding, we even provided our own funding, because we believed so much into the project. So we put in our share of funding, and we went to the government and we said, we've put in 50% of the funding to show you how much we believe in the project, how much we believe in these women. Can you also chip in and do the funding? And it happened. And those women are no longer domestic workers, guys. They now have their own farm. So that's what we do. Yeah.
Wow, this is actually remarkable. I didn't know you were doing all these other work behind the scenes, especially coaching other women and youth. And like you rightly said, people may have diplomas, PhDs, and all of that, but sometimes, we need our own indigenous knowledge systems to be, cascaded to others. And you are the perfect person, you too, Chilofe, because you're in the community. You can see the struggles that women have, especially our young people. We have a wealth of young people in Africa that are just sitting idle, doing nothing. And here there are so many opportunities that you just presented here within the agricultural space alone. It's not just about the primary production, but there's a whole lot of other opportunities, from processing to marketing, to transportation, to a lot of other things that you are already doing within your practices. and there's a lot of opportunities there. So I'm really glad to see that you are hands-on in, you know, coaching others and mentoring other women to, you know, to empower them to be in this space. And of course, this session is one of them where we are mentoring others as well. So, and Chilufya, in your practices, what challenges have you faced, especially around getting, maybe, I don't know, recruiting others? I don't know whether you are recruiting young people to work with you, or you're recruiting local women. And what are some of the skill sets that you think, you know, are still lacking out there in order for us to make it within the agriculture space, especially around marketing? Yeah, marketing your produce.
Okay, I think I'll drive back to what Rebecca just came from saying. You know, something that I find to be a huge barrier is we farmers are not content. We are not confident about the people that we are. I think this is something that's a huge barrier. So speaking about levels of education, I myself, everything that I have right now has been driven through passion. I got married at a very tender age, so I didn't get the privilege of going going to take courses in college or university. Everything that I know from the hospitality sector has been taught to me right there and then, and I've had to run with it. Everything that I know from farming, I had to work with an agronomist who mentored me. And believe it or not, I didn't have one agronomist that I worked with, but I worked with two or more. And that has really helped. So for me, I find we're talking about being prepared to go into the market. I think what more farmers need to learn how to network. When you're networking, take off all titles. When I'm looking at doing something, when I mentor, I don't segregate in any way. Of course, the women and the youth are my favorites, especially the women, because farming I don't know if it applies everywhere, but in Zambia, farming has always been male dominated. So when you find that most men are given a platform, a better platform, or taken more seriously, you sit back and look at it and say, come on, I'm a woman. So for me to come on board, I'm coming with an extra touch to everything that I do. So once you support and follow a business that's woman driven, you just never go wrong. I laughed when Rebecca mentioned Spider-Man, because when I'm on site, I think I turn into a spider woman. There's certain times, like I told you, when you're working, you must take off your title. You see, for me, even when it comes to connecting of irrigation, we get a problem on top of the tank. I go up these tanks and go and find out what's going on. So you must know that for anything that you do, in-house training should be very much encouraged. People in the community, bring on board those that are ready to learn. Do not take on time wasters, because you bringing everyone on board means those people that are eager to learn are going to be disadvantaged, because you'll now be taking everyone on, even those that are not taking things seriously. So I hope that answers what you asked me, Precious.
Excellent. I just love how I can see the passion coming out, and the power of mentorship and coaching is, you are a living example of this, how powerful it is. But thank you so much for sharing your story, Chilufya. Over to you, Nonto. I see we only have maybe 15 minutes left. We don't have much time. So Nonto, I don't know if you have any other questions to add.
Outdoors, you know how we're speaking about some of the challenges that farmers, like smallholder farmers, face in terms of marketing their products. Okay. I love your story about how you're a smallholder farmer, but you're operating like a commercial farm. can you speak a little bit about how you have actually overcome and been able to actually supply these retailers and also smallholder farmers?
Okay. For me, like Nonto has mentioned, I'm a small scale farmer, and I decided to operate commercially. This is only made possible because I network a lot, and I've I've now merged in working with other small scale farmers because I believe together we are stronger. So what Chicken Farms has done is we've signed contracts, 2-year contracts with other farmers, because in order for us to be consistent with our supplies, we need not to run out. So with these other farmers, we get to agree on how much we grow as Kikan Farm and how much do they grow as our outgrowers. Of course, it took time for us to settle in because I think our African culture sometimes comes and shoots us in the foot. Okay, because just because someone is doing something, I believe when you do an outgrower scheme, you must be content with the content in the contract. If you agree on, for example, I take on Rebecca as one of my outgrowers for cauliflower. If Rebecca and I agree that Kikan Farms will buy 1 kg of cauliflower from Rebecca at $2, for example, Rebecca should be comfortable with that and make sure she's giving the best quality as possible. If the open markets are offering Rebecca $1, I'm sure $2 is a better deal for Rebecca. Rebecca must not get up and now start going behind my back because I'm the one that's dealing with the end user, being the client. We should be able to work together. So for me, it's been a process, but I'm happy over the years, my outgrowers have understood where I'm coming from, even from their business point of view. Them being our outgrowers, their costs are cut. They give me produce. Sometimes the produce is not even clean. I go through the whole cleaning and quality control process. I go through the packaging. All those are costs that are on me. So I feel, so if we are in the same place, let's look at what is it that you can bring in? What quantities do you have? And that's the only way you'll be able to have your presence felt in the market. It's either you work together or you just don't produce at all. Like you heard me mention earlier, no one wants to work with a company that is not consistent. You end up working out as a headache. People cannot sign contracts with suppliers every week. They want to sign a contract and have this supplier coming in all the time with everything that they need. So for me, with my outgrowers, they understand that the face that's out there is Kikan Farms. Our responsibility is to make sure our outgrower is happy. Them being happy is, for our outgrowers, we give them free consultation. And that's simply because we are assured that the produce that they're giving to us is of high quality. Then we also make sure we have a good payment structure. We make sure from the date of invoice, we pay them by 7 days. We don't exceed that. Although we are doing that, that's just for us to maintain a good relationship. The people that we are supplying sometimes even take 60 days to pay us. So for us to also continue, because they are buying in bulk, those are the ideal clients that we look for. But that's with the chain stores. For operational costs, that's where our lodges and hotels come in, because we deal with them on cash on delivery, because that now helps us with our day-to-day operational costs.
For you to determine the price of your produce? How do you go about and determine the price of your produce? Maybe Rebecca can.
Okay, before I go into pricing, actually, Chilufia, you did a good job there explaining further on the market, because I felt we had not done justice to the issue of markets. Is we mainly spoke on compliance, and a lot of farmers do not meet the compliance issue. Number one, because it's very, 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 very expensive to get the certification to be able to supply these retailers. So, like what she said, the collaboration is very, very, very important in farming. You get your outgrowers that feed into your offtake or your growing program. And the other thing that people can do as well, if they don't have the certification, is to collaborate with those that are already distributing or that are already supplying the big retailers. Us as Bex Foods, we do that. So we've got a hub of farmers, fellow farmers, that can feed into our growing program. Like Chilufia said, consistency is key. And if I cannot grow enough for my customers, what do? I have to go to the smallholders and say, guys, okay, are you able, how much or what are the quantities that you can give me? Because it's almost impossible for anyone to supply everything. So in this game, collaboration is very, very important. And to team up with those that are already supplying the big retailers. And at the same time, it has to be a win-win situation. Everybody has to be happy. So we then come to the point of pricing, right? There are a lot of things that you need to take into consideration to arrive at a price. You've got your packaging, you've got your utilities, you've got all the inputs that go into producing that that product. You need to take all that into consideration. So she said, if you are giving me cauliflower for R1 and I'm selling that cauliflower for R3, don't then come to me and say you're ripping me off because I've given you R1. I've given you cauliflower for R1. You are selling it for R3. There are a lot of inputs that go into that cauliflower. The time it ends up on the shelf, there is packaging, there are the ladies that process, there is water, there's a whole lot of stuff that go into packaging that product until it gets onto the shelf. There is transport, all those things. And the other thing with price, there are other external factors that determine the prices. So one has to be in touch with what's happening out there. Phone your markets. For example, the Joburg farmers market, they dictate, I guess, the pricing of the general pricing. So you need to be in contact or to know daily, find out daily, what is this product going for? Because you don't want to overprice and take yourself out of the market, or underprice and make a loss, and you are crippling your business by doing that. So there are a whole lot of things you need to, to be in touch with what's happening in the economy daily. But if you are growing something that is not easily available, you can sorry, I think I had an incoming call. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yes. And if you want to grow out of season, for example, there are winter crops, and you are farming in an area that allows you to grow summer crops during winter. That way, the external markets cannot dictate the pricing for you. You can actually dictate the price that you want. because that product is not easily available. I'll give you an example here in South Africa, what's been happening. There's been a shortage of tomatoes, and prices for tomatoes have been very, very hectic. Broccoli, people have been supplying broccoli at 25 rands a head, whereas an average price for broccoli is what, 10 rand, 10 to 15 rands, but it's going for 25 to 30 rands. Baby marrows, they have been in short supply. A pannet going for 20, 25 rands, which usually cost an average of 9 to 10 rands. So, there are a lot of things that come into play when it comes to pricing. Okay, all right. Yeah, besides the big retailers, guys, informal sector, the informal sector, that type of market is actually very, very huge. One can actually make more money from the informal market than the big retailers. So you can get here. I'll give an example of here in South Africa. We've got the malumes or the baki uncles. So they can come to your farm, load their bakis, and they find their own market. So you don't have to have certification to supply the malumes or to supply the baki market. Or you can take your produce to the Joburg or Durban or whichever local municipal fresh produce market. You can take your produce there. You don't need certification for that. So there are other avenues that you can distribute your produce.
Thank you so much for that, lady. Very much. I'll hand you to Precious.
Yes, thank you, Nonto. If you're able to just maybe mute everyone because the crackling sound is still there. Maybe that should be helpful. But I see there aren't any more questions from the floor except exchanging of details and exchanging of emails and all of that. And I think that should be really helpful for colleagues and other farmers that are on this platform to share those details with each other and to exchange more information and to continue learning, because that's precisely why we're here, to mentor each other, to coach each other, and to give each other information on what's out there, what opportunities exist out there. So if we are able to achieve that in this session, I think this is a job well done to us as well. And we're excited to see all those exchange meetings going on post this session. But once again, thank you so much for joining us, all of you, and for making time to be in this session. And thank you for engaging the engaging questions that came also to the presenters. Thank you so much, Aunt Rebecca. I'm also looking forward to working with you in your mentorship program, because we do have a youth intervention at Solidaridad, and we are looking for mentors and experienced mentors like you to work with. So you will be hearing from me as well, reaching out to see how we can work with you within our youth intervention and mentorship activities. But other than that, we are going to be having other sessions, webinar sessions that you are all invited to with different topics. So please look out for the next flyer that will be coming out soon. And Chantel, we hope we can also engage you with the technology aspect of your operations, so that you can share out there what's viable for women farmers, and what's reasonable in terms of cost and resources, and what it can do to assist them in their farming businesses. Thank you so much once again, and do this. Okay, I think I've got it. I think I've got it. All right, I'll let you know. Now we can all say cheese. Cheese. While I do my magic aside. Okay, I have taken quite a few. Thank you so much, everyone. We can clap for our wonderful presenters and have yourselves a great afternoon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.